Welcome to Scene Change, a podcast by the National Federation of the Blind Performing Arts Division. All about equality, opportunity, accessibility, and the arts. Here, you'll learn adaptive techniques from performers in the know. We are changing what it means to be blind, one stage at a time. Thank you for joining us today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scene Change. We are tapping into the new year with Cristina Jones. And this, every time I'll say this is my favorite episode, or this is, the one I'm really looking forward to. This episode is my child right now. It's our child, the three of us. We have been through a lot before doing this. And all I can say is 2025, there's nowhere to go but up from here. So, if you haven't figured it out, I am Lizzy Muhammad Park, your host of the show. And today's episode is just in time for all of our New Year's resolutions. It's a good workout. It's a good strengthener for your joints. And it's a very cool performing art. That's right, everyone. We're chatting with Cristina Jones about her experience tap dancing. Welcome back to the show, Cristina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're always glad to have you. You're just a wealth of knowledge on various topics, which is why, it's sort of an annual thing. We should have like a Cristina month where
no thanks.
have you on for something. Or whatever your, whatever our latest question is about one of your varying performing arts. All right, let's jump right in. You've done tap dancing. You've led a session for blind performers on tap dancing at the end of 2024, which we sort of teased a bit last month in our December episode. And what we want to know to start off is, where did this all start? How old were you when you first started tap dance? And what was your inspiration for getting involved?
So, funnily enough, tap dancing is not something that I do professionally. It's more of a hobby. I started tap dancing when I was 6, and I've actually been tapping for longer than I've been singing, which is what I do professionally. And I started just because a bunch of people around me were taking tap or this or that or the other thing, and someone asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, sure, why not? So I started, and I never didn't stop. Like, it's only been in my adult life, I'm 36, and it's only been like the last 3 years that I haven't been taking classes or lessons in tapping.
Wow. Who was that person who came to you and said, hey, do you want to do this?
She was actually somebody, she was a staff member at the Braille Institute in Anaheim.
Mm-hmm. Ah, so it wasn't even a question about like, can a blind person do this? You were already accepted. You know what I mean? In the club, just by virtue of the Braille Institute and it's philosophy, it's outlook on blind people and having that can do philosophy. So that's a good start. Like, that's a good experience to kind of know that you're going to be included right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
So, were these classes sort of like private lessons? Were they small classes? Was it a big class? What was it like? Could you sort of describe to us how you learned?
So initially it was like a bit, I don't know what someone just defines as a big dance class, but there were like, I think there were like 12 of us. There were like 12 kids.
Sizable.
And a smattering of, I think there were like 6 teenagers or something like that.
Oh, cool.
So altogether, I think there were like 18 to 20 people. And then, eventually like the tap teacher stopped teaching at Braille, but a bunch of us still wanted to go. So we started going to, to her studio. And I think it was like 8 of us that were consistent for a while. And then eventually like people kind of trickled off or stopped going or whatever. And then there were 4 of us, and then there were 3 of us, and then there were 2 of us. And then
there was one.
And then it was just me. And so then it became private lessons. It did not start off as private lessons, and I never intended for them to be private lessons, but they became that way through I want to say through college. So like for most of high school it was like three of us and then two of us. And so I did a lot of like tap duets and stuff like that. But then eventually it was just me, which was weird in terms of orientation because it was just I had to just kind of figure out like it's like hey,
Right.
let me see if it happens if I go this way. But so I couldn't go off of somebody else's shoes, so to speak.
Right.
And in terms of like how she structured the classes and stuff like that, she was Ginger was my tap teacher, and she was really good about describing things. I think initially because she had never worked with blind kids or people before, and you know how it is. Like there are a lot of people who are like, I think I can, but I don't know. And she was just like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to describe things to these kids? If, will they be offended if I talk about color or if I talk about like what this looks like or, whatever. And then she kind of went in initially with this fear. She didn't tell us that at the time, but this is something that I know now. And then like the first question that people asked were like, what color are your tap shoes? And like, can I feel it? That kind of thing. So she was like, oh, it's gonna be fine. So after that, she was just kind of like, okay, so how can I verbally describe things? And it's like rare was the time that we would actually do like hands-on lesson lesson times where it's like there was like a move or something like that or a step that we just were not understanding. I think we did like some hands-on stuff like maybe like a couple times in like the 30 years that I've danced with her. And she, it was mainly, tap dance is great because it's mainly sound. So you're going off of the rhythm of the music. At least that's how she choreographed things. And personally, I think one of the reasons why I'm really comfortable with running around on stage and stuff like that is because of my early tap lessons and the consistency to which I was dancing, because I was constantly, you know, dancing with like no props or no set or whatever. So, then with a set and stuff, it's like, okay, well now I have something to orient off of.
That is so fascinating. Also, what a great segue. We're gonna get into it later, but I guess more of a teaser. What a great teaser that you mentioned. Everyone wanting to know what her outfits look like, because we are gonna get into that later. I had that as a question for you. I am most fascinated that she was someone who was just taking a risk, and saying like, "Oh, I'm sure this
Mm-hmm.
is possible." I love teachers like that. Um, that just shows how much she's willing to challenge herself and believe in her students. So, wow,
Mm-hmm.
how cool. So basically, what I'm hearing is that she was incredibly descriptive. There was not a lot
Yes.
of hands-on time, but when you guys did have hands-on time, I'm picturing, a class 18 blind people. How did she handle that? Were people sort of just practicing and she would just go around to each student one by one and then, have people sort of do the hands-on or maybe even an up close look for those who are low vision? Or does she have a different method of teaching?
She had a different method of teaching. It was more just that like she would describe the steps for all of us and then she would break it. She had a really, really good, because she's a person that generally has taught a lot of kids in her life. She's taught, from ages like three up to like 90 something, because there were a lot of people at the community center that she used to work at that would take her classes. So she had a really good way of breaking things down for people at the very, very basic level, and then building on that. So with us she would say like, okay, pick up your right foot and do this, like brush it forward, brush it back. Okay, that's a shuffle. Brush the ball of your foot forward, brush the ball of your foot back, kind of thing. And so she would break things down into these kind of fundamental parts, and if we weren't understanding something, she would she would either, she would verbalize it for us first, and then she would do the step so that we knew what it was supposed to sound like, and then she would verbalize it further. And then we would kind of try and do it. And then sometimes what she would do is like if we were all really having a hard time with a specific like sequence of steps, she would say, okay, Jessica, you're not quite getting that step right. Do this for, and then, and she would do individual time while we were kind of breaking off and like trying to figure it out or practice it or whatever. But it was more, everything was very, very verbal. She would not, like, she wouldn't, I don't think she ever had somebody actually look at her feet or something. That was never like a,
No way.
yeah,
That is
like
so cool. She's a
even
good
with
teacher.
even with somebody who had like low vision or anything like that, she would have people go off of the sound, because she was like, no, because if you're getting that close to my feet, I'll kick you in the face. But like, but
Oh.
but she was just like, no, just go off of what we're hearing, and she would just keep verbalizing it or figure out like, okay, let me put like, so if there was a specific sequence of steps that I was having a hard time with, I think the most hands-on I ever got with her was, hey, can I put my hands on your elbows? Because then I would have my hands on her elbows, like on either side of her body, and then I could feel which way her body was moving, but not necessarily, I wouldn't have my hands on her feet. Because I think because the steps are so, even if you're doing it really slowly, your legs are long and you have more range of motion in your legs than you do your arms. I mean, I have really short, stubby arms, so there's that. Like, and she had particularly long legs, so it's like, you can only follow somebody's leg or their foot so far before you lose track of it, and it's just going to feel different.
I love this. I'm a bit speechless right now because I've never taken a dance class where it's not incredibly hands-on and, I'm
Hmm.
looking at the person's body. So this is just like fascinating to me. So for those, I mean, it's like you said before, tap is very, it's very auditory. But for those who have not seen it, could you sort of take us through some of the basic steps and moves? Like, what does it look like when someone is tap dancing? For example, I don't know if you kind of, I'm sure you've memorized so many sets and like, we don't need like a whole dance or anything, like, just the few basic steps.
So like some of the more basic steps would be like a flap, or like a flap, like a ball change, or like a shuffle. Those are like the really, really like basic things, and or like a step, because everything kind of builds off of that or is a variation of that. So like with a shuffle, like I said, you kind of pick your foot up, the working foot, and like you allow the ball of your foot to kind of brush forward and then back, forward and back. And it's kind of, you kind of lift your leg from the knee, not so much like you're not like hiking your leg up really high or anything like that. So that would be a shuffle, right? A flap would be where you are picking up your leg or picking up your foot and you're brushing your toe forward, the ball of your foot forward, and then you're kind of taking a step onto the ball of your foot and moving forward, and then you're flapping forward several steps. And it's hard to explain. I should have brought my tap shoes with me, but I did not. It's hard to explain without really, really hearing it, because it's going to be this like, I don't know if you can hear this. Like it's going to be that kind of a sound when you're flapping. And like a ball change would be, well, you're changing weight. You're changing between one foot and the other, like one ball of the foot and the other ball of the foot. So you're putting one foot back, kind of maybe at like if you were ball changing with your right foot, it would be that your right foot moves back to like 4 o'clock ish, 5 o'clock ish, and you tap the ground with the ball of your foot, and then you tap the ground again with the left ball of the foot. So it's going to sound like this. So ball change. Um, and that's pretty much it. So like those three would be like the very, very, very basics.
And then everything just builds from there.
Yeah, I mean that's a really dumbed down
Of
rendering.
course, of course, of course. I mean, like you gotta, learn the first what 0 through 9 before you can start doing
Yeah,
derivatives and whatnot.
yeah.
So no, it makes perfect sense. That's so cool. Wow, and just the like as you were describing, I guess we heard all of the audio, so that was very helpful. But as you were describing it, it's like, oh wow, I could see that. So is it as tap gets more advanced, is it that you just move faster, kind of kick higher, get fancier? Is that what
It's
more advanced tap
actually
is like? Mm.
so more advanced tap. I mean, it's not necessarily kicking high or anything like that. It's actually more about keeping a lot of your weight more under you. When I was younger, I
Mm.
used to step out further. Like I used to widen my step quite a lot. And actually in like professional tapping, you're you're you don't travel as much as you think. So a lot of your weight is kept like right under you. So it's about how quickly you can and how centered you can keep your weight and change your weight around between foot to foot.
Well, that must be really good for your balance, I'm thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So I have a different question. If I mean, maybe I should go rogue and not ask my questions in the order that I that I originally had them because you're referring to a lot of stuff already. But let's go. I'm gonna stick to my list for now. So I'm hearing you mention the ball of your foot a lot. Is that sort of the main tapping area? Are you using your toes at all? Is it your heel at
Yeah, you're
all?
you're using both. So like for those of you who don't know what like a tap shoe looks like, it looks like I mean there are different kinds, right? But like the fundamental tap shoe that you're going to use to like start learning how to tap is going to be like a low-heeled, block-heeled shoe, and it's going to have a metal tap on like the toe area, and it extends back up to like that maybe the like the very the ball of your foot kind of thing, and then you're going to have another tap tacked onto the heel. So you could actually go and buy like character shoes or something like that from like a dance store or a shoe store of some sort, which and character shoes tend to be like they tend to have a higher heel. So a lot of professional tap dancers use higher heeled shoes that have like a blocked heel or like a wider heel. You're not gonna dance on stilettos. And they have and then they go to like a shoe person and get them to like put taps on the shoes.
That is so cool. Um, so while we're on the topic of the tap shoe, real quick, I'm gonna get back to what we've previously spoke about. What do tap dancers usually wear for their recitals? Like, how do they dress?
Pretty outrageously. I don't know, because the thing is, I only know what I wore for my costumes. Some people like it just depends on what venue, because I know that a lot of like jazz or Broadway does a lot of tap dancing, but it's a different kind of tap dancing from what I learned. And there are also different steps, like different sequence of steps, and there's like the technique is a little bit different, but like so a lot of times those people are wearing like bow ties, suits, top hats, a cane. They're like it's like the quintessential tapper, and like the women are wearing they're wearing they're wearing like opaque or nude tights. It depends on the woman, and I mean as with a lot of dance, like the dresses or the skirts are quite short. So that a lot of times that's usually a thing, and then like for me, when I was tap dancing, you would wear like a leotard, which basically kind of looks like they have different kinds, but the kind that I had to use looked basically like a glorified bathing suit. And and then over that you would wear, and and that's basically kind of skin tight essentially, and over that you would wear other things that had to do with your costume. Like you would either wear like a shiny skirt or dress or something that's going to catch the lights and move is the bottom line. Like
Mm,
there's going to be a lot of like sparkly things, tassels, glitter, rhinestones.
wow.
It's pretty it's it's pretty shimmery.
And cool. So what is the style of tap that you grew up doing? It wasn't like a jazz style. Like what was it? What is it called? Is that just sort of classic or?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I asked her at one point and I just don't remember.
Hmm.
Uh, I feel like the closest to it was Broadway. Like, I don't remember if there, because I know that there's like rhythm tap versus like Broadway tap, and I'm pretty sure that we did more in the style of like Broadway tap.
Wow.
Because I know that like whenever I've heard tap dancers that are doing like jazz, I'm like, what the heck are they doing? Because it does not sound familiar to me at all. Like it sounds like a mess. Not in the best way possible. Like I'm just like, what?
Wow. No, that like it's I'm just picturing. And when you mentioned, the top hats and everything, that was what I was thinking that you were doing. You know what I mean? I was thinking like,
Hmm.
oh, it's like more of a jazz style. But no, because also when you mentioned the shimmery outfits, I was like, oh yeah, like that is true. That's also a thing. Um,
Hmm.
so that's just I'm loving hearing all of these different iterations of tap. But we've talked about what a great exercise this is, and it goes along with our January New Year's resolution sort of thing. How
Hmm.
do you feel about tap as a workout? I know it's great for the joints. I mean, you mentioned there were people 90 years old in your class. So,
It's good. It's
yeah.
definitely good cardio. Like it's definitely good cardio. It's
Hmm.
good. It would be good. Like, and honestly, like the cheapest like if you were interested in starting tap, I wouldn't go to a studio initially because they're more focused on like competi unless you want to be competitive, but because they're more fixated on competitions and stuff like that, and it's also so expensive to go to a studio. So what I would honestly do initially is go to your community center and like take the classes from there because it's going to be like $5 or $10 a class, and a lot of times like for the entire like semester or season or something like that, they're going
Hmm.
to they're going to charge you something like anywhere between like 40 to $200 for
Wow.
like for half a year,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Um, and so what should people kind of go in like armed with? I mean, does it require sort of incredible balance? Will that improve later? What do people need to know before they sign up?
Well, I honestly think that it's something that would improve, like balance, like your balance and your orientation and things like that, that those are naturally going to improve as you tap, as you work into it. Because I mean, like I don't know how much time I spent like standing on one leg or whatever when I was 6. So there's that. But it's gonna, without thinking about it, it's gonna work on your your mobility, because of your orientation on stage or on the dance floor, and it's also going to work on your balance and stuff like that without thinking about it, because you have to figure out how to get you make the movements big first, and then you start getting them smaller and smaller and smaller to until it feels really right under your body, and then
Hmm.
it gets easier from there.
Wow. I mean, it's just like with anything, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna refine as you go along.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, so I don't
yeah.
think you need to walk in. I don't think you need to walk in being able to do specific things. I think you just have to walk in open and willing to just try and explore.
Mm. Is it one of those, certain styles of dance? I can't necessarily think of one particular one at the moment, but certain styles of dance are more you gotta be more willing to look a bit silly when you first start. Is tap
Oh,
one of
absolutely.
those? I was gonna say, is tap one of those styles of dance, or is it, um, is it just more like you'll kind of it'll be within you? You may stumble a bit, but you're not gonna like be so awful with your balance that you're gonna like
Oh
tip
yeah,
over.
yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, I think it definitely takes a sec because you like with anything, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to try and figure it out. Like right now, I'm starting to take ballet again,
Oh,
and
fun.
it's been several years since I took ballet, and every once in a while I have to go back to it, for the sake of reminding my system how it works. And I'm like, oh God, I haven't done this in a sec. But because ballet is one of those things that like where it's very graceful.
Hmm.
You want a very specific kind of look, right? So you're not going to look like that right away. So there are specific things that you have to practice.
Right.
Whereas tap, I'm not saying that you don't have to practice or that whatever, but it's not the same. It's not you like
Yeah.
you're not expected to look like a swan.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not
And
going to be gliding.
and I think that that sort of, you know, lowers the bar in a way as far as like the fear of going in and looking ridiculous, right? Like, right off the bat.
Yeah, yeah. Like it feels a little bit more attainable, and I think the thing for me is that tap dancing. I felt was a great start for me as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
because it gave me the confidence to sit there and say, "Hey, you know what? If I'm doing this, maybe I can try other things." Um,
Exactly.
and I think that's the bottom line is that, whether it be tap or something else, if you're
Mm-hmm.
getting out and trying something, if you're willing to give it a go, then you might be willing to give something else a go down the line.
I agree. I'm so glad that you had this experience with such a great teacher at a young age, because I do wonder, if that sort of boosted your confidence in a way of, being comfortable on stage, like you said, orienting yourself, listening to different sounds while you're up there. I mean, I'm just thinking of all of the tools, that tap potentially sort of kind of instilled in you from a young age. I'm not saying that it all came from tap, but
Mhm.
I wonder if it played a big role.
It actually played a huge role.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I don't know how much of that is tap, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, and how much of that is my particular tap teacher, because she's
Ah,
somebody that I
yes.
still keep in touch with to this day. She's honestly like she means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
She's like a mom to me,
Mm-hmm.
and she's incredibly supportive, and she's always been really supportive of me no matter what I've been doing in my life. Even if it has nothing to do with tap,
Right.
we'll check in with each other or whatever. And, like not a month goes by that I don't talk to her at one point.
Wow.
And it feels weird if I do go a stretch without talking to
Mm-hmm.
her. And and she's just a really, really special lady to me. And, she's been absolutely super supportive of my singing career,
Mm-hmm.
and all throughout college and stuff like that. And she's just, I can't say enough wonderful things about her. And so it's difficult for me to separate tap from her.
That is so true. I mean, good teachers make all the difference in learning
Hmm.
and in life,
Hmm.
So, and that's actually a question that I had for you as well, is what are some components of a good dance instructor? I mean, look, not everyone's gonna find, the gem of a teacher that you had, but if they can find something similar, what are sort of some of and you're someone who's had experience in various styles of dance and
Hmm.
stage presence, so on and so forth. What are some attributes that people should be looking for, or even avoiding, in a dance instructor or coach?
I would say the main thing, I think this is a case with like a lot of things, but I think somebody who's willing to work with you, because I think a lot of times in the blindness community, it's really, and I'm guilty of this, okay, but it's really easy for me to ask. It's really easy for us to ask as people, have you ever worked with a blind person before? And it's like, who cares if they have or haven't? You know what I mean? Because just because they haven't doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to do that well. And I think that's my gripe with that question. And I have a tendency towards asking the same thing, so I need to shut up. But 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 the I think the main thing is that somebody is willing to try, try and be curious with you. And, somebody who's willing to listen to you in terms of like, oh, that's not working, but okay, let's try something else. Because just because my particular tap teacher was good about describing things verbally and helping it stick, that doesn't mean that she's in, somebody else has to learn that way. If somebody needs a lot more hands-on, that's okay. As long as that teacher is willing to, I don't know, do their job and teach them in the way that's meaningful to them.
Here, here. Teachers who can adapt to their students' needs are the best teachers. You really can't. It's hard to. They're hard to find, but they are the true gems as you described with your teacher. So the last question is going to be positive, I promise. But before we go to that route, I'm just curious, what is the hardest part of tap dancing? And then, of course, the follow-up to that is going to be, how did you conquer that obstacle? How did you, what are the techniques for getting around that? And I ask this because, oftentimes as a blind person, people are telling you like, oh, well, I don't know how you're going to do this. Obviously, hopefully that's not the teacher saying that, because if it is, as you mentioned, whether or not they've worked with a blind person is irrelevant. But if they're not willing to teach you, or if they have sort of this negative attitude going in, that's really going to change things. So I ask for those, who say like, oh, well, how is this even possible? I don't even know where to start. There are some teachers who say, I'm not saying no, I'm panicked. I don't know where to start with this move or that move, or how could I possibly teach you to do blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. It could be moves that people would assume are difficult, or would be more difficult for a blind person. It could be an exercise. It could be orientation on stage, just whatever people would assume that a blind person couldn't do. And maybe it was difficult for you in the beginning. Maybe it wasn't, because your teacher already had a technique thought of. I don't know.
Okay, so I just realized, because the moves and stuff like that, those are things that you practice and figure out and you break down, and yeah, there are going to be moves that are going to be difficult every so often, but generally speaking, you're going to overcome them and it's going to be all right. But I think the main thing for me that was consistently difficult was orientation, because if you're not moving, I think. I have a tendency towards veering a little bit, and
Mhm.
even a tiny veer, will throw your line off on a stage.
Mhm.
So if I think that the most difficult thing for me was to figure out, if I did go offline, like out of alignment, which would happen frequently, by the way, figuring out how the heck how to get myself back to where I needed to be. And the thing is, like I said, because you're only using, like, I don't know, the music, the sound of the open part of the stage, the sound of the part of the stage that's a little bit more closed off, or like lines on the floor, like, because that's
Mhm.
all you're going off of, if there are lines on the floor, then that's kind of all you have to go off of. And it can be a bit scary, and it's a little like, oh crap, like when you if you find yourself like kind of lost on stage, and it's like a really like like moment when you realize where, like, that you're like, oh crap, I shouldn't have ended up here.
There were no news broadcasts of, you know, 20 blind people falling off stage together, doing a tap dancing, doing a tap dance recital. So things must have gone well. I mean,
Scantily clad blind people too.
yes,
Like,
and you're shimmering, skirts, and you know what I mean? Like, I mean, listen, but I mean, things must have gone well. So it seems like you're using what the feel of the not feel with your hands, but sort of like a sensory, feeling that you get, where the stage is more open, and then the auditory from where it's more closed off, and maybe there's a light, maybe there's lines on the floor, as you mentioned. Like there are ways around this. Maybe you've got that one really good person on stage who does stay, in alignment, and then you're kind of using their tap shoes to go off of things. I mean, this can be done,
yeah,
right?
it can
Yeah,
absolutely be done. Yeah.
like, and you've done it, and your classmates have done it.
It's like you got to figure it out, and I think the thing is like being okay with being a leader sometimes and being a follower other times. Like, because like I know there are some people that have a complex to where they need to be in front, kind of thing, or they need to be the leader, even if they're wrong. They need to be the leader. And then there are some people who are just uncomfortable with leading, and they're just like, I really want somebody else to be in charge. Please don't stick me in the front. Like, I think being flexible in terms of like, I'm not even talking about from song to song, although that's part of it, but I'm also talking about like from moment to moment, like, okay, having an honest assessment of where your skills are. Like, okay, I really am not doing great with orienting myself in this moment, but she's actually in line in this moment. Okay, so I'll listen to her tap shoes in particular. And then, she's going to realize that I'm actually in alignment when she's having a hard time in that moment. So she's going to have to go off of me, kind of thing. So, and if so it's like having honest conversations.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think we have this obsession societally a lot of times of coming across as perfect, or like we don't make mistakes, because we need to, I don't know, feel superior or something. I have no idea where it stems from. But it, I think just being honest is okay.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. And I love that you mentioned that too, because I mean, it is true. I mean, not, I ask like, what's the hardest part? But it's also true that like not every blind person's going to struggle in the same areas. I mean, I think I would struggle with orientation. Don't get me wrong. Like,
Oh, girl, I do too.
only on, and the reason why too is because you're practicing in a community center, in a studio, so on and so forth. But then you're performing on
In
a
a different
stage,
space.
and
Yes.
that for me, that throws me every time.
It throws me off. And I think that's honestly something, like, if it makes sense, it's something that I was able to get comfortable with in terms of being uncomfortable.
That's real.
And it's being uncomfortable with a safety net, because like, when I was tapping with Ginger, like she would be there. I mean, if I went into the great beyond, she would be there to say stop, and she would say like, look, because what we would do is like before every performance, she would have us like, she would walk the stage with me. So she would like, she would, walk us to the edge of the stage, have us be aware of where the edge was with our foot, and not being afraid that we were gonna, because she wanted us to know exactly where it was. So I would like reach my foot out and find it, and then we'd walk back towards the other end, and then we'd go from, end to end on the stage, basically, and we'd walk that together, kind of thing. So that, and that was the extent of the orientation that we would get. It was like not even 5-minute orientation. So it's like, all right, and she would say like, if you ever hear me say stop, you stop. You do not, I don't care what happens to the performance, but you stop. And that never happened to me, but I know it did happen to one of the other girls at one point. I don't remember exactly how, like how that panned out. She didn't get hurt or anything like that, but I know that she did have to yell stop.
I like this teacher's methods.
Hmm.
I'm she's just so cool to me.
Yeah, and I really appreciate her because it got me. I mean, I need to get back to the space where I'm a little less anxious about it, but like, but it got me comfortable with like because it's like okay, well, it's a stage. You've been on a stage before. This just looks different.
Right,
That's it,
right.
And it's the same thing. Like if you're comfortable with traveling, it's like okay, a sidewalk is a sidewalk.
Exactly. It's true.
Whether
It's
you're
so
in
true.
California or New York, it's a sidewalk. I mean, yeah,
Yep.
there are more people on these sidewalks, but it's still a sidewalk is the bottom line.
No, I love that analogy. It, you know, it's very accurate. It works so well. Um, Especially, in this setting. So my final question is what advice you have for anyone who has now heard this and said, you know what, I want to give this a go. What would you tell them? What would you, if they said like, I want to give this a go, but I'm so scared. You know what I mean? I'm nervous about how I may be perceived or, whatever questions, may come up for a first timer. I've never done it before.
Oh, I
But
would say to do it. I mean, I
yeah.
would, I don't want to sound like I don't want to take like Nike's Logan or slogan or whatever, but like I just think that people need to do it. No matter what it is, whether it's tap or something else.
Hmm.
If there's a curiosity, follow it.
It's
And you
true.
might decide and give it a year. Like give it a year if you can, but give it a couple months at least. And really really give it a go and just know that you're going to walk away from it a better person in one way shape or form, and it might not even be in the ways that you expect. Like yeah, okay, fine, you're going to be a better dancer, but how else is your life going to improve?
I love it. Give it a year and see what happens. Your life will improve. There's no better way to end the show than that. So, if you want to follow you on social media, get in contact with you, hear more about your professional career, your singing side, your opera side, where do they find you?
You can go to my website at which is www.theblindsoprano.com. Or I know I can be found on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, blah blah blah, at theblindsoprano.com. So it's oh excuse me, at the blind soprano. There's no .com for the other bits. But that's it's pretty easy to find me. It's not like I managed to snag those up real quick. So
That was smart. That was smart. Well, Christine, it's always fun chatting with you. This has been yet another awesome episode. It was hard to get to, but easy to get through, if that makes sense.
yes.
So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to the listeners who join us and listen, check in with us, send us emails. We appreciate them. Thank you to Drew for editing and going through this process that we've been through today. It was quite a doozy, but we made it through. And as I said at the beginning of the show, we're only going up from here. Thank you again, Christina. This has been yet another episode of Scene Change.
I'm Caitlin McIntyre, President of the National Federation of the Blind Performing Arts Division. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Scene Change. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and visit our website at nfb-pad.org. There you'll find links to our social media, membership, and resources for blind performers. Thanks to everyone who makes this show happen. Scene Change is produced by Shane Lowe, Joe Schuneman, Precious Perez, Chris Nussbaum, Seyun Choi, and Aaron Jordan, with music by Ryan Strunk and Tom Page. Remember, you can be the performer you want. Blindness is not what holds you back. We'll see you next time.
I'm Lizzy Muhammad Pote. I'm Lizzy Muhammad Park.
What's your
guys,
name?
guys, it's been one of those days.
Oh god.